Good evening, and welcome to the Facebook Live Milford Readers and Writers Festival, Doing It Right. I'm Edson Whitney, and I have the honor of being the co-chair of the festival along with Carol McManus and the amazing group of talented and committed board and committee members who are bringing this event to you, the readers, for the 5th consecutive year. For this year's festival, we've brought back some of our alumni from our past festivals. And at this time, we'd like to remember one of our past festival presenters, Patricia Bosworth, who passed away in April and who graced our Milford stage in 2017. Patricia was an actress, author, and biographer who enthralled us with her wit and stories of some of the top stars of Hollywood whose lives she chronicled. We are so pleased that she joined us for the festival that year, and we know that she will be missed. Now, despite the pandemic, we're excited that we can take the festival global this year with our virtual platform and bring the festival to you wherever in the world you are. And some of our presenters are scattered about as well. Gloria last night was coming to us from California, and one of our cartoonists tonight, Matt Diffee, is in Austria. So we truly are global this year. I'd first like to thank the Greater Pike Community Foundation and the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts for their generous support. Now, for those of you who have not attended before, this festival is focused on the readers. Our tagline says it all: readers, writers, conversation. The readers come first, inspiring and engaging in conversation with the authors and each other. We kicked off last night with an excellent evening, and Gloria Steinem and Suzanne Levine in conversation. It went all smoothly until the end when my computer played some jokes on me and the mic wasn't working. So I'm hoping that tonight the jokes will be with the cartoonists and not on me. So this evening, our cartoonists are two-time festival star Bob Eckstein will interview two fellow cartoonists, Chast and Matt Diffee, exploring humor in trying times. And I think we all need some humor these days. Bob was with us 2 years ago, leading a panel of cartoonists. And last year, he live illustrated our festival with drawings that he did of the festival. So as three very well-known cartoonists in the industry, they will provide a light perspective on creating humor in our current times. Bob Eckstein is a New York Times bestseller, award-winning illustrator, and the world's leading snowman expert, having written the book, The Illustrated History of the Snowman. He also did the cover for the new Writer's Digest and Publishers Weekly, which are out this month. Bob teaches at NYU and has many cartoon books, including a new one just coming out, that one lucky questioner will be eligible to win after tonight's conversation. The conversation will be for 45 minutes, followed by questions from you, our audience. You can post your questions in the comments, and they will be posed by Carol McManus, festival co-chair and board member. While all the events are free, your donations are welcome, and they are fully tax deductible via the donate link in the comments or on our website at themilfordreadersandwriters.com. Welcome again, and thank you for joining us. Enjoy the conversation, and let's welcome Bob Eckstein and fellow cartoonists Chast and Matt Diffee.
Thank you, Edson. And thank you to Carol, Sean, Amy, and everyone else at the Milford Festival for having us. And thank you, everyone out there watching us now, for joining us. And I want to thank my guests here. It's great to see your faces, Matt and Roz. Thanks for joining me. How's everyone doing?
Good.
And where are we zooming from? Matt, where are you from right now?
Yeah, I'm in Vienna, Austria, oddly enough. But I live in California these days.
Not your home, yeah.
Yeah.
What do cartoonists do in Austria?
I don't know. I've just been here about a week.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. It looks like they drink a lot of coffee, but that's the same as cartoonists everywhere, I think.
Have you checked
Ones
out
I
the
know of.
cartoon scene at all? Do you see where they use
No, there's a
cartoons?
cartoon museum here I have to go to.
Okay.
Tom told me about it, but I have not been yet. Just settling in.
Okay, and Roz?
Wonderful bakeries.
Yeah, baked goods are quite delectable here.
And
Yeah.
Roz, where are you from? Where are you zooming from?
I am in Connecticut.
Oh, we're gonna have to do better than that to top Austria.
Yeah, I know. That's pretty much it.
I'm gonna say I'm zooming from Alcatraz.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I gotta do something.
When do you get out?
Actually, I'm in Pennsylvania. Actually, I'm here in Pennsylvania, talking to voters. Sort of hanging out with old timers at 5:30 a.m. waiting for the diner to open.
That's great.
Sounds
Wow.
good.
So anyway, Tim, we could start if you like. What we're going to do is I'm going to just share a little bit of work, and then we'll go back and introduce the guest again. But we also want to just share our work for a moment, and I want to encourage the viewers to add to the chat room any questions, because there is going to be a contest and there's going to be a Q&A at the end. And next, you can move to the next one. One thing I want to remind people is that all three of us have put out books. So we would love any questions about publishing. We're here, this is a book festival where there's all readers and writers. And that's our wheelhouse. Okay, next. Oh, and this is one of mine. You could click on the caption. So where do you see yourself in 5 months? And with that, I'm going to start with some of my work. You could go to the next slide. Great. And I just want to mention that I started off as a snowman expert next. And I traveled the world and did research for about 7 years. And I was trying to learn everything I could to try to answer the question, who made the first snowman? Next. And this is actually the first illustrated snowman. I found this in the illuminated manuscript along the margins of a solemn passage about the crucifixion of Christ. And I found this at the Royal Library at The Hague. And this is dated 1380. And there's a whole story about this that's a story I'll tell another time. But from this field of snowman expertise, I got into cartooning. What happened was you can move on to the next cartoon. What happened was I did this book, and I wanted to have an intermission in the middle, and I wanted to, Sarge, permission to move freely. I wanted to have cartoons in the middle of my book as an intermission, and I went to the New Yorker, and I bought a bunch of cartoons. I actually ran out of money and had some space, so I did some of my own cartoons. And then I got to know some of the cartoonists. And one in particular I was friends with, who everyone on this panel knows as well, is Sam Gross. And Sam Gross took me out for my birthday. And I'm sorry if I'm repeating a story you know already, but he took me out for my birthday to the famous lunch that the New Yorker cartoonists have on Tuesdays. And it's this French restaurant in Midtown. At the time, was called Pergola's. And it was there that he took me around and introduced me to other cartoonists. And it's where I eventually met Matt and Roz as well. And Sam, on parting, said, why don't you come back if you want? And on a dare, he said, why don't you try cartoons? And he did just that. He brought me back in a couple of weeks later, introduced me to the magazine, and I showed my cartoons. And that's how I started. And it was all because of Sam. And I know that Roz is very close to Sam now, and we really miss those times where we get together and have lunch in the city.
Yeah, absolutely true. I started doing that almost as soon as I started being a cartoonist for the New Yorker. And this would have been maybe, the late 1970s, and went out. We were in the Wednesday group. This was, Bob Mankoff, who eventually became cartoon editor. Mick Stevens, Liza Donnelly, Jack Ziegler, a group of us. And yeah, the cartoonist lunch was definitely a big part of my life at that time.
And who was in the Tuesday lunch? Those are big heavy hitters?
The older guys, yeah, the heavy hitters, the older guys. We were kind of like Lee's people, Lee Lorenz, who took over from Jim Garrity, I think in maybe the mid 1970s, a few years before I became part of the group of cartoonists. But Garrity was cartoon editor for a very long time, and those older guys, they were the Tuesday people.
And did you eventually work your way into the heavy hitter group, or it was always separated?
I think it was always separated. I mean, I never really thought of it as heavy hitters. I thought of them as those were the old guys and we were the younger people. So, yeah.
Well, this is an old cartoon, actually, but it shows that I was like ahead of my time because it shows social distancing here.
Mm-hmm.
So I could go to the next one. What happened was is I've been doing a lot of pandemic cartoons. This is one I did recently. And you know, the title is Humor in Trying Times. Well, I'm trying. I really am. I've been doing a lot of cartoons. I had about 50 published cartoons about the pandemic. And I've also been working on books. And I worked on a few books and a few projects, and I was teaching as well. And the books that I'm working on today, there was 2 books. You know, both of the writers on the books. One is cartoonist Michael Shaw, who you might know. And the other one, and I was just in touch with him right before, he says hello to you, is Jack Handy.
Oh, I love Jack Handy.
Yeah,
and
Jack Handy is,
they're great. He's the funniest writer.
Deeper Thoughts from Saturday Night Live, for people who don't recognize the name immediately.
He wrote so many funny sketches for SNL.
Oh,
some of my absolute favorites. Do you remember there was one where it was around Christmas time and it was a fake ad for a toy to give your child, and it was a Viking, and I forget what it was called, Red Eric or something, and it had these like, you know, one of those helmets with the horns that went up like this, and you filled it with like red paint that looked like blood, and then his head spun around like this, and like red paint like that looked like blood like went all around the house, and it was just, I remember the first time I saw it, I just, you know, I thought this is the best thing I've ever seen. This is so funny. But yeah, he's hilarious. They're great, very wonderful.
Next, Tim, Matt, you also know Jack as well, right?
Yeah, just through Tom Gamble, who's another Simpsons writer and cartoonist
He's
guy.
so nice. Tom is amazing.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah, Jack is the best. Yeah, Jack is very, very much loved by comedy writers everywhere.
Yeah.
And you gave him an original cartoon as a thank you for giving him
a book blurb.
Giving you a blurb.
Yep, that's how it happens.
I have the original
grease
of
the
yours
wheels
as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a prized possession. And now Jack's next book is excellent. I had the chance to read it first, and because I'm illustrating it, and it's really good.
What's it called?
It's called Fiction Stories, and I did the cover and illustrated the inside, and I'll make sure I get you a copy.
Is it short pieces?
Yeah, it's only little shorts that he usually does, but this time I really was like spitting up liquid out of my nose. It was like so good.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Did you guys read The Stench of Honolulu? His like novel length. It's got like 6 great jokes on every page, but it's a longer narrative, and I just love it. Yeah.
He's been so kind to me. For my new book coming out, he gave me a blurb too.
Yeah.
And he's just one of the greats. He's one of the greats.
Yeah.
I've never met him in person.
Roz, he loves you. He sends a big hello and hug.
Oh, back to hugs and hellos back to him and Marta, his wife. We miss them. I mean, you know, Bill and I used to go, my husband Bill, we used to go out to the Southwest sometimes over spring vacation when the kids were, you know, both in school. And we would see them. Of course, you know, that's one of the many things I miss about this time. It's just traveling. I miss seeing, you know, people who don't live here.
Yeah. And everyone's separated everywhere. I remember a time, Tim, you can move to the next. Meanwhile, I remember a time when all the cartoonists lived in Connecticut, it seems. Like in one little village.
Yeah. Oh, there were tons. They lived in, a lot of them, Helen Hokinson lived in Westport. A lot of cartoonists lived up here.
Yep. In the meanwhile, we've been showing some of my cartoons. Tim, if you could go back just one. This one, it's part of a series I do for the Daily Beast. And I cover the Democratic and the Republican convention. This is the famous Spanish expression. It means a crazy person lives in the White House. You could go to the next one. I also wanted to do a summary of Joe Biden's last thing. The guy always seems to be on the telephone comforting people. I give him a lot of credit. But if you want to see more of my work, a lot of my political work, just go to the Daily Beast. And that's where they gave me a stage. It was really kind of them. Okay, the next one. And I'd like to go on to the first guest, and that'll be Matt. I'm going to introduce Matt formally right now. You could click on, Tim, you could click on to the next if you wish. Great. Matt Diffee has published hundreds of New Yorker cartoons and has edited 3 popular cartoon books, The Rejection Collection. In 2013, he won the National Cartoonist Society Silver Rubin Award for gag cartooning. His last book, Hand-Drawn Jokes for Smart, Attractive People, was an NPR Book of the Year. He has performed on The Morph, and his wonderful TED Talks on ideas and cartoons have personally inspired me in my work. He's considered a cartoonist. That's like when they say in baseball, he's a baseball player. Matt's a cartoonist. He's widely admired in our field. And Matt, thanks so much for having it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for that very flattering introduction. Speaking of the moth, there is a moth flying around this lamp that I have right here. So I'm expecting and hoping that it'll make an appearance here. Just land right on my camera. So yeah, so we're going to look at a few of my cartoons, I guess, here. Tim, you can just go to the next one. Oh yeah, so this is, I'll read the caption. Sorry, he's been cursing like that ever since we put him in that little sailor suit. It seems like it might happen. All right, next. This is a mobster gag. The granddaughter, I imagine, of the mobster fella here is saying, "Daddy, can I have a pony killed?" A little dark. This is one of my favorites, actually. Leon's Auto Salvage and Center for Interpretive Dance. Just kind of silly. I also grew up in Texas, and to me, this is a very Texas cartoon.
It's a beautiful drawing.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah. It turned out well. I remember I probably did 7 or 8 of these, just trying to get it right.
It's great.
I think this was my second ever, actually. What'd you say?
You can draw cars. I cannot draw cars.
Well, I do a lot of Google image research to try to get it right. Cars are tricky, though. They're harder than you would think.
They really are. And one time, and talking about cartoonist lunches, one time after a cartoonist lunch, Jack Ziegler, Mick Stevens, Bob Mankoff, and I went out, as we often did, for some drinks after lunch. And we decided that we were going to challenge each other to draw a bus on a napkin. I think I still have it in someplace, like out of our heads. And Mick and Jack drew the most amazing buses, just completely from memory. Bob's bus was not so great, but it still had somewhat bus-like kind of traits. My bus, I think you could say that it had a lot of personality, but I realized as I was drawing it that I had no idea, like when I finally, like I didn't understand the back part of the bus, like how much it extended over the back. It's very boring. Yeah. I realized nobody wants to hear about that.
No, those back wheels are way up forward.
Yes, yeah. It's insane.
You're talking about a school bus versus like a city bus. City bus, easy. It's basically a rectangle. But that school bus front is tricky.
Yes.
Like two boxes and then an extended. Yeah, it's tricky.
Yes.
So, Roz, I want to mention you said Jack. I want to make it clear to the audience. You're referring to Jack Ziegler.
Jack Ziegler, yes.
I had the honor to meet, and he is one of the true great gentlemen. And he was a teacher for me from afar, teaching me cartooning. And he was so gifted. And for people who want to learn more about his work, I think there's a book by Lee Lorenz called The Essential Jack Ziegler.
Yes.
And it gives a little story. And now his daughter is someone I've become friends with, and I'm very fond of.
Yeah, Jessica.
Jack was a great.
Yeah.
No, it's so sad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that, next slide.
Matt, what do you want to say though?
I was just going to talk about other things that are hard to draw. Hot air balloon, incredibly difficult. Actually, they're quite simple, I think, right?
Yeah, I think I could draw a hot air balloon. But
yeah, they're pretty easy.
Buses.
What's hard are helmets of all kinds. Football helmets, like soldier helmets.
Yeah.
You think they're easy, but
I love this cartoon.
Are there things?
I have a story about it.
Yeah. So the caption here is the dog. You can't really see it very well. I can't, at least. But there's a dog in the other hot air balloon, and the man is saying, "No, Rex, go home," as you do when the dog is following you.
And I can see it's a German Shepherd.
Yeah.
I have this cartoon. I had it taped to my computer, and I don't have cartoons anywhere except I have one other cartoon up in the wall. And this cartoon was the cartoon that was on my computer for years until the computer died. And for some reason, I let the cartoon go with it. So I have to find another copy.
Wow.
But this cartoon so hit me as like such a great boom, boom. And I just loved it. And I told Matt that. The other cartoon I'll mention that's on my wall is by one of my favorite cartoonists, Michael Maslin. And I have an original of his in which space aliens come back to the planet Earth, and they came back for their wallet that they lost on their first trip. They're coming back and say, "Oh, that's where it was, just where I left it."
I like doing cartoons like this that have like exaggerated scale to see how small you can make kind of the detail of a joke sometimes. It's a visual challenge, I guess.
I assumed that when you did this cartoon that you sold it instantly. Like you got a phone call at your studio that the New Yorker saying, "We're going to run this right away." And
the red phone rang.
Yeah. But in fact, you told me, I believe, that it took multiple submissions before this was accepted.
Yeah. It seems like most of the sales I make went through and got rejected several times. And I don't think it has to do with like mistakes the editors made. I just think it's just so many cartoons coming in every week, and maybe timing. I don't know what's going on, but there's a high percentage of my sales that have ended up in the magazine that were previously rejected by the same magazine.
Yeah. I read sub a lot too, but often when I look at something from before, I think of another way to do it. Like the joke is in the same sort of field, but I figure out a better way to do it, or I edit it, or something, make it shorter.
That's the beauty of distance. Yeah. You look at something months later, or even years later, and either you say, "Oh, that was actually really good, I'm going to resubmit it," or you say, "Oh, I can't believe I didn't see this."
Exactly. Yeah, you say, "Oh, why did I do that? That was ridiculous." But the way we work is that you're on this deadline and you're turning in a group of cartoons every week, which a lot of people don't know. I've gotten asked like, "You must have the greatest job in the world. You do one cartoon every week and they buy it." And it's like, well, not exactly,
Right.
So they, as you said, they're getting multiple submissions from, 40, 50 people every week. So it's, of course, they're not going to look at every single thing. There's going to be like, yes, no, yes, maybe,
Yep. It's such an arbitrary decision, I think, most of the time.
Tim, you could go to the next one.
Yep. Yeah, this is self-explanatory. Just live goldfish for sale. I just thought it would be funny to reverse, like fishing waders, and put the water and the fish inside. And
I love that guy's face.
Yeah. He seems like he should be happier. I don't know. I've never had goldfish in my pants, but
I
No,
wonder how many jobs you
that would
created.
make you. Yeah.
no, I think that's the right face.
Right.
That's
I do like to undersell it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, next. Yeah, this is my last one. This is Canada geese. Seems like they would enjoy a hockey game through the window. So there you go.
Matt, thanks a lot.
Yep.
All right. Let's go to the next one. I'm going to introduce formally my last guest, which is Raj Chast, is the only New Yorker cartoonist who is arguably a household name. She has been awarded many things, including the National Book Critics Circle Award, the Heinz Award for the Arts and Humanities, Kirkus Prize, the Society of Illustrators Hall of Fame, and the National Cartoonist Society has honored her Cartoonist of the Year. Raj, you must have an enormous mantle.
No, I have a bedroom of both of my kids are now out of the house. So it's in there along with the bird travel cages and all the other things like
Well,
that.
it's a real treat to have you here and call you my friend. So thank you.
Well, thank you for inviting me to be part of this. I'm excited.
Let's see some of Raj's work. Next.
So this is Hamlet versus Amazon Prime. It's, sort of to buy or not to buy. That is the question. Definitely nobler to shop locally, and yet free shipping. Yeah.
So true.
The quandary. Next. Yeah, good. Oh, this is I've done some cartoons about, the situation we're all in, the pandemic. It's sort of there's a lot of current events that I don't feel terribly inspired to do cartoons about, but for some reason this pandemic, well, I think the reason is that I'm kind of a hypochondriac and I'm always basically waiting for, the anvil to fall on my head. So this is the Fauci on my shoulder, and little Fauci is sitting on her shoulder and saying, "That's not 6 feet. That's more like 4.5 feet. No, it's not safe to hang out at Taco Tower. Hey, where's your mask?" So next, I did this one pretty early on in this when I'd been in the house it felt like for a very long time. And as you might notice, there's no bathroom here, but sawdust. So this is going full terrarium. A lot of cans and things. And this, I'm going to show some, I periodically get, next. Periodically I get obsessed with certain craft type things that are not directly related to the New Yorker. They're just things that I really, really, really love to do. And these are Pisanki eggs. And that is not painting on, these are just chicken eggs from Stop and Shop, but they're not painting on eggs. They are the traditional Pisanki method of drawing on the egg with wax and then dipping the egg into subsequent vats of dye, special Pisanki dyes, which are very vibrant. And so you're thinking in the negative, which, comes very easily to me. Knee slapper. Okay, this is one egg, one face of the egg. Next. This is an egg I did based on the Good and Plenty box, but it's not the new Good and Plenty box, which is disgusting. They really fucked it up. The new Good and Plenty box, they added a really revolting purple to it and other really bad things. The old Good and Plenty box is one of the most beautiful objects you will ever see in your life. So this is that. Next. This is another Pisanki egg, and if you turn the egg, you can't obviously turn the slide, but I have his arms and the back of him is his back. But this is a guy. The whole egg is a guy. So next,
The detail's so funny.
Yeah, and this is basically what the setup looks like. The thing with the nails is there's a twofold purpose to it. When I finish with the eggs, I coat them with this kind of polyurethane thing that protects them a little bit, and that helps the egg dry. But also, the eggs have no interior. I blow the eggs out, but after they're done, there's always a little bit of glop that remains in the egg. And if you take the egg that you think you've blown all the glop out of and you put it in a container, it's not good because the glop will eventually come out and then the egg will stick to the bottom of the container. Has this happened to me? Did I learn this from experience? Why, yes, I did. So this way of putting the egg on these nails allows you can see a little bit on the wood, allows the remaining glop to drip out over the period of about a week. And at this point, this is my third sort of bout of this mania since 2006. I don't know whether it's partly because it's the pandemic and I've been in the house so long. I've done probably about 18 so far in this bout of things. And the little tools in the front, those are the tools that you draw with. You melt wax in the little brass well at the end of these tools, and then you draw with it. Next. This is an assortment of a lot of eggs. This is from the maybe 2014, the last time I was obsessed in this way. And they just look really pretty all together, I think. The colors are just so nice. And it's really, it is the traditional method, but I've made up my own ways of combining the colors and getting the detail and all that kind of stuff. And there's all different things. I mean, some of them are based on one thing or another. It's just really fun, and it takes one's mind off like the horrible things going on in the world. Next. And this was maybe the first or second week when the pandemic started for the New Yorker. They had asked me to do a cover, but I was told that David thought it was a little too jokey for the seriousness of the situation. And so they went around it as an inside page. And the titles of the books are, Am I Too Worried? Am I Not Worried Enough? The Big Book of Hiding Under the Bed. And, this was back when people were stockpiling things. And as you can see from this drawing, one thing I really do like to draw, I do not like to draw cars or buses, but I love to draw the back of television sets. Next.
It's my wife's favorite cartoon.
What?
That's my wife's favorite cartoon.
Oh,
she loves that cartoon.
Oh, I'm glad. This is another pandemic cartoon. This is a handy chart. I like making charts as cartoons. And we have the activity and the risk equivalent. We have hugging friend. The risk equivalent is licking subway pole. I can't wait to get back to that. Dinner party, French kissing everyone in the subway car. Restaurant, licking floor of subway car. Theater, French kissing everyone in subway car, then licking subway pole. And flying, the risk equivalent is French kissing everyone in the subway car, then licking pole, then licking floor. Next. And this is the cover I did. This is for the June 1st issue of this year. And it's called Lockdown. And the thing about this cover that was really fun for me is that it's actually, I don't know how much you can tell from this, but it's an embroidery, hand embroidery on a piece of fabric, which I then smushed onto my scanner and scanned it like 1 million dots per inch and sent to the New Yorker. Yeah, I like, it's another craft like the egg thing, which is very, very, very finicky and a little bit obsessive. But I really, again, it's something that I can get very lost in and takes my mind off bad things. Next. This is a refresher course. This is another pandemic cartoon. And this was like when things were starting to open up again. So it's, remember store? Go in, look. And the woman says, me? Many doodads, funny sock, cute soap, paperweight, a pin. Now, buy with money. And she goes, huh? What are money? And then the last box is, money are from job. And then the next week is job. It's going to explain what a job is. I do remember the first thing that I bought in a store, not like the first thing that, not like groceries, but going and in early May, this coffee place was open on the main street in my town, and I was with a friend, and I bought an iced coffee, and it was just like, oh, I remember this. Somebody else made this iced coffee for me, and it's in a cup, and I have a straw, and it just was like, it had been months since something like that happened. And like having to go into my wallet and like give somebody, like the person behind the counter, like money. And it was just so odd. Anyway, next. And these are just, I'm going to show a few more sort of obsessive things. I got really into rug hooking. This is something, it's called primitive rug hooking. It's what, I never remember whether it's pilgrims or pioneers, but what those old people in the olden days did when they didn't want to waste anything. So I guess pioneers. And they would have these pieces of burlap from like flour sacks or whatever. And clothing, like they did not have a Zara's back then. So clothing was very valuable. And when it wore out and it couldn't be patched anymore, ladies would shred it into these thin strips and then weave it into the burlap, and they would make rugs. So it was called primitive rug hooking. And this is a piece of burlap, but I didn't use clothing. I used strips of wool, rug hooking wool. And I have a device that is called a strip slitter.
Nice.
I swear to God, it's really called a strip slitter. And it cuts it into pieces of wool, and then you weave it, and the pressure of the loops. It has nothing to do with latch hook rug kits. I like birds a lot. That's why it says birds. And I have 2 birds, and I know I'm gender stereotyping them. One is a boy and one is a girl. And the pressure of the loops is what keeps the loops from falling out. Next. And this is an older New Yorker cover. This is also an embroidery. It was for the tech issue and the Mother's Day issue, which coincided, or it was a tech issue, which coincided with Mother's Day. And so this is a motherboard, but you can't really tell very much from this picture, but it's an embroidery. Next. And this is the final slide. And this is one of my very, very favorite quotes from a Polish poet named Czesław Miłosz. And this is an embroidery, and it's, when a writer is born into a family, the family is finished. So that is the last of my slides.
Thanks, Roz. Tim, you can make us larger now for a moment as we going to bring us all to gallery view, and we'll do a little chat for a moment. I'm going to see more cartoons in a minute, and let me just ask a couple of questions. To keep the conversation going about humor in trying times. The first question I always get in these panels is always, where do you get your ideas? And actually I get mine from the garage, because that's where I work. I work on top of a bench, top of my garage. But the point I want to make,
Stop and Shop.
Stop. Matt, do you have a certain place? I know in your TED talk, you go into how you come up with your ideas, but do you have a particular location?
Yeah, just wherever I happen to be, set up in a studio. That used to be one place, but now I'm here, so I haven't really established anything yet. But yeah, it's nice to go to one place that's dedicated to that. You can close the door from the rest of the world and family. And for me, I'd make a cup of coffee or a pot of coffee and an empty sheet of paper and just sort of spend an hour or two just trying to come up with ideas, as simple as that. And then over the course of days of doing that, you come up with a lot of terrible ideas and a few good ones.
Well, my question for you two is, how has the pandemic changed your creative process? Because like I teach my students how anxiety hinders your creativity. Yeah. And with anxiety and deadlines, this could be holding you back from being free. Do you think there's any truth to that to you personally, where anxiety of this time has prevented you from being as creative as you usually would be?
See, I think I have a different relationship with anxiety than some people. I think I have always been very anxious. And sometimes it depends on the thing. There are some things that I'm anxious about that, you know, I don't know if I'll ever find it funny. But then sometimes I've had experiences where I've gotten very anxious about something and then later found it funny. So like one time I was in the bathtub and our house was built in 1940. So I started thinking about all of this and wondering, you know, about how heavy water was. And I pretty much convinced myself that the bathtub with me in it and all the water was going to fall through the floor, and I was going to be killed. And I got out of the bathtub, and as I was drying off, I started thinking about it some more, and then I found it really funny. But it wasn't funny when I got out of the bathtub, but later it was. So
did you come up with a cartoon from it?
I did try doing something about it, but it didn't really coalesce into anything. But the pandemic, I'm very anxious about it, but sometimes it starts to flip into something that's funny. So it really depends on the thing, you know.
Well, I know David Sarkis, this isn't exactly anxiety. He said one time, he's a fellow New Yorker cartoonist, and he just said that he keeps a list of things that he's mad about that are making him angry.
Yeah,
and I find that really interesting because I don't work that way at all. But yeah, just in being angry about it tends to, in him at least, engender some sort of comedic response. Yeah, I think I'm more of a straight gag guy. It's more of a mind puzzle than it is a connection to me emotionally. But maybe I should try.
How has this past year affected your state of mind, Matt?
You know, I have a 4-year-old who just turned 5, and I was already sort of in kind of a home kind of circle, just because you don't go out much and you don't do much anyway. So it hasn't really, and I work at home, so I make jokes about it. It hasn't really affected my life very much at all. I've always worked at home, and even being stuck with the family is nice.
Yeah.
As long as you don't watch the news too much.
But do you feel a responsibility? And this is a question for Ross too. Do you have a responsibility? You feel a little bit with friends and loved ones that you're the person in the room to need to lighten the mood, that they count on you to lean on when to get through these times?
I wouldn't put that heavy of a thing, but I do, like in certain circumstances, tend to make a joke just to help, I guess, myself. What about you, Rob?
I think it would be more for me because I get nervous, and but not for somebody else because I don't really understand other people.
But Rob, do you get pressure in social situations to be on? Like, do people expect you to be on, or do you feel like you're in the point you don't feel like, you punch the clock, you don't need to perform?
I don't know. I mean, I think I'm so anxious in most social situations that I don't think of it as that binary. It just depends on the mood. and what my mood is then,
Yeah. I know when we get together ourselves with our cartoon friends, we always laugh a lot.
Yeah.
We always have such a good time. And it does act as a therapy, I think, for the rest of the group. We all have our own challenges and stuff. And I used to always love to look forward to it because it was such a stress release.
Yeah, I do miss seeing people, and I miss going into New York, and that's going into the city for me was such a big part of my pre-COVID life,
Are you guys not going in at all? No?
I've been in a
Not
couple of
much.
times. I've been in a couple of times. I was in a couple of weeks ago, and it was great, but it was all it was great because everything that I did was outside, and
Are there a lot of cartoonists still coming to the magazine?
I didn't go to the magazine.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't think anybody's going to the magazine. I think everybody's working remotely.
Okay.
This was just going in to see friends and not for the magazine at all.
I was waiting for you to say, and to go get Chinese food. I feel like that's like the main reason to go back to New York is I feel so bad for all the restaurants. And I had so many favorite places.
God.
I'm constantly I dream about food all the time, worry about what places will reopen and what places,
I dream about travel.
Oh.
I dreamed I was in Alaska last night in my dream. I
might be going to Austria, Matt.
What's that?
I might be going to Austria.
Oh, yeah? You coming to Vienna?
Well, depending on how this election works out.
Oh, yeah, in November. Yeah, well, it's nice. Come on. Got a good bus system and subways and healthcare, I think.
Yeah. I have other questions, but I think that we're running a little long. So I'm going to let Tim show some cartoons again and let Carol get in the fold here because I know she's anxious to share some questions from the audience. So let's see. Thank you, Tim. And we could also do the contest. We have a contest going on in which we're going to ask somebody a trivia question to win a book. This book is going to be the cartoon book All's Fair in Love and War. And it's a new cartoon book coming out in which Roz and Matt are featured predominantly in. And I don't know if Carol, Tim, if you can, just advance the cartoons. You can go to the next one. And that's Matt's. And you can go relatively quickly. These are captionless cartoons. I always consider these like a great form of cartooning when you can do it without the caption.
Yeah, it's nice when you get one like that works. Do you think they're harder?
Well, the bar is a little higher, don't you think? Yeah, the bar is a little higher.
To get a genuine laugh without any words is rare, tricky.
Yeah.
I mean, that one cheats. It has words in the sign, but.
Yeah, Matt, you have a religious cartoon. I just had a religious cartoon right after the other. And I should mention, it's kind of rare that you and me both have a sort of a religious background. I was an altar boy at Holy Cross Elementary in the South Bronx.
Yeah, I was a fundamentalist Christian in the South. Kind of the same.
Tim, you could go a little slower, especially when my cartoons come up. This is about the pandemic, of course. And
I don't understand it.
Yes, you do, Matt. Come on.
All the odd sports mixed together.
Now it's a metaphor for the challenges of the year ahead. Next. You bastard. Can we cut Matt out of this room?
Yeah, I'll leave.
I believe this is in the book before the new book. This is in Everyone's a Critic, in which Roz has a few cartoons. This is a favorite of mine. Really cool.
Yeah.
And the next cartoon is a favorite of mine by Matt. You go to the next.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Zen garden with a TV.
That's great.
Yeah.
I
Now the
miss
next
antennas.
What's that?
I miss TV antennas.
Yeah.
They were such a great design drawing element.
I think when I drew this, they were even old. I just like it.
Yeah.
It's
There's another
factually correct.
back of a TV for you.
Yeah.
But you think that a monastery is not going to get a flat screen TV right away? They would pick up something from a used place, a pawn shop.
Yeah,
true.
probably.
I think you could argue that point.
Yep.
The next slide is actually the cover of the book, and we actually mentioned this artist earlier. This is Sam Gross, who is on the cover.
The great Sam Gross.
That's right. And you guys have seen the book, right? And I know that you got it.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
I've yet to see it. It's probably sitting on my doorstep in California.
Well, if you'd stop going around Europe somewhere, Matt.
Yeah, I've got a neighbor collecting my mail. I'm sure he's enjoying it.
Okay, and Carol, when you want to cut in, let us know. We are going to show the cartoons until you want to join us and have some questions from the audience. But Tim, you could advance to the next slide, please. Thanks.
Yeah, the captions. Whoa, someone's been doing some gathering.
These are some of the cartoons actually featured in the new book.
Say what?
These are actually the next cartoons. These are featured in the new book.
Oh,
the
okay,
ones by Roz and you. Hello, Carol.
Right.
Hello, guys.
Hi.
I didn't want to interrupt you. We're having such fun, and I know our audience is loving every single minute of this, but we do need to move along, and we definitely have some questions. So, Bob, before we start with the questions, because we want to give people to think about it or cheat and go research and see if they can guess it, you have a trivia question for our listeners, and the qualifying person is going to get a copy of this new book you've been talking about. Great. So you want to give the trivia question?
Yeah. And Tim, in the meanwhile, you could advance the slides while I give the question. And the trivia question is who is the special guest at the Milford Readers and Writers Festival 2 years ago at the event? He is one of the legend New Yorker cartoonists, and he's actually also friends of all three of us. And so that's the trivia question. If you someone doesn't come up with an answer right away, we're going to give a clue. So, okay. Carol, do we have a question from the audience?
We do have a question. This came in from Brian Carso. The question is a question for the cartoonist. How do you most often first conceptualize a cartoon? Does the image come first or the caption? And by the way, this is wonderful was his comment. So who wants to answer that first? What comes first, the chicken or the egg?
It's always words first for me. But I think, Ross, I think you're different, right?
I'm a little bit of both, but mostly words. But this particular cartoon that's on the screen right now, actually, that was image first. But I would say 85-90% at least is words first. And
but when I'm saying words, and I assume when Roz is saying words, we're not talking about we're writing the caption first. To me, that's like the last thing you do is we're writing words and like wordplay and like writing down things that indicate images in your mind, I suppose, like duck talking to a pirate or whatever.
Yeah.
Or something that's a funny word, spatula.
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing, the wonderful thing about cartoons is that I think this is why this field appeals to us is that the words and the pictures are so intertwined, although it wasn't always like that, as a lot of people, maybe some people don't know this, but in the old days, well before my time, before you guys' time, there were people who were gag writers and people who were artists. Like Peter Arno did not write any of his gags. He bought them from gag writers. And when I started, I would occasionally get a packet of gags from a gag writer. And I would think when I would get these, like, do you know what my stuff looks like? Have you ever seen my stuff?
Tim, go back one though. Tim, yeah. I'd like to interject just quickly, say, well, first of all, I have this book and it's fantastic. And this is by Matt. And if you now want to advance to the next book, this is a book by Roz, and I've given this many times as a gift to people. In our household, we give it to people who are going through this problem of aging parents. And it's been a very great help. And I want to thank Raj right now again for this book, because it really is an important book as well as being very funny.
Thanks.
Okay, so can I go on to the next question?
Thank you, Carol.
Good. Okay, we have one from Mike Vreeland. And Mike asked, if you are sending the same cartoon to the same publication, how long do you wait before you resubmit?
For me, it varies. I mean, I have a couple of times I've liked a cartoon so much that they haven't taken that, like 2 weeks later, I find myself resubmitting it. But mostly there's a gap of at least a year, you know?
Yeah, my answer is exactly the same. Sometimes you're so annoyed, you're just, come on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You just put it in the next week. I don't usually sell them that way, but
no, I know.
Just to remind them, like, come on.
Yeah.
I wait a few hours. And then I just send them a really sharp pointed letter.
Yeah. Sometimes I tape a $10 bill to mine.
Yeah.
Oh. You know?
Secret laws of success.
Yeah. It's like, listen, just take this one and this can be yours.
Yeah.
Tim, you can advance the slide because I want to show everyone Roz's new book, which is also fantastic.
It's not that new anymore.
Oh, right. Yeah, well.
I just love the title, A Love Letter to New York. Roz, that's fabulous. That is fabulous. I have to buy that one.
Well, the drawing on the cover is based on a photo in the book that I found of me and my mother. It's my first subway ride. I don't know how many sweaters I'm wearing under that coat. Probably 4, looks like. Anyway.
I love it. Okay, let's go to a question by Steve McGinn. This is a really interesting one. Matt, you have children. I know you said that. Roz, you have children, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bob, you don't, correct?
Not yet.
Okay, so this is for Matt and Roz. I work in public health, and as she was growing up, my daughter told people I sat in front of a computer for my job, or that I was a nurse. And at 16, she still really doesn't know what I do. What do you tell your kids that you do for a living, and what do they think that you did when they were young? What was their perception?
Well, when my son, my firstborn, was about 3.5 years old, we were still living in Brooklyn, in Park Slope, and I used to take the subway every Wednesday to go into the New Yorker with my cartoons. And one day I was just curious to see what he thought I did for a living, and so I asked him. I said, "What do you think Mommy's job is?" And he literally said, "You go into the city, you go onto the train, and you show your drawings to the men."
Oh my goodness.
I know. It sort of took me aback, and it wasn't entirely inaccurate. This must have been around like 1990 or something. It was a little bit before we moved out of New York. And I think I was pregnant with our second kid, but yeah, you go onto the train and you show your drawings to the men.
That's
okay. Yeah.
My son, my 5-year-old, thinks I'm a bank robber.
Wow.
A bank robber.
Yeah. No, he says I draw pictures and make up stories, which is, I guess, what I told him at some point.
That's funny.
He doesn't really know what cartoons are, really, apart from just drawings.
Okay, so this next question is from Ruby Lynn Willis. Have you had a cartoon published and then later thought of a different caption and reworked it, so to speak?
I've definitely thought of improvements for cartoons after they've been published, but I have nowhere else. I don't have a second market to tweak them and submit them to, so I just have to live with the regret. There
you go. Bob, how about you?
Yeah, I recycle. And I just want to remind people that you showed on the screen footnotes from the World's Greatest Bookstores. The reason why I put that up there is because I want to remind everyone to try to support their independent bookstores during this time. I put that up there because we're going through a tough time in which it's very important, especially people in this festival are very sensitive to that. They know that so many people have so many friends of the community and we have to help them. But I'm sorry, to go back to the question, sure, I feel like there's always some kind of good in a cartoon that might not even be working. To revisit it is fine. Sometimes you have to let a cartoon marinate, and it could take 2 or 3 years before you get the full idea. I had a cartoon that you saw earlier with the Rubik's Cube. That cartoon initially had a caption. Then 2 years later, I kind of boiled it down to the simplest form. And with me, I'm always taking a complex idea and breaking it down until it's most simplest form. And hopefully, when I'm getting there, it's without a caption.
Roz, how about you?
I don't think that I'm that determined to make it captionless, unless that's the best way to do the idea. I think I'm okay with some words, but yeah, I mean, I rework stuff all the time, and it really, I have cartoons that have, like that one with the end is near and you wish, that was something that was like boom, boom, boom. It just happened. I had this idea, I drew it up. But most of the time it really is doing it and reworking it and thinking about it and changing things around and it can marinate for a while. And then the whole resubmission thing we were talking about, where you look at a cartoon from 3 years ago and then you suddenly see how to make it better, and hopefully they take it. And sometimes they do.
So, Bob, I don't think we've had anybody answer the trivia question, or maybe they forgot. Why don't we give that question one more time before I go to our next viewer question?
Yeah, we're looking for the name of a special guest cartoonist we had 2 years ago at the festival with the initials GB. And the clock is ticking, and we can actually share some joy. Excuse me.
Yeah.
First. Yeah.
You'll share some stories at the end.
Yeah. We'll see if anybody picked up.
I see somebody in the comments.
Okay. No cheating there. No cheating there. Okay. So I want to go. I want to first of all acknowledge Elizabeth Getz. I'm not going to ask your question. She asked one that Bob, you actually asked about where is your primary inspiration. I want to go to a question that was submitted. Let me find it here. I got to scroll up by Vern Lazaroff. How does one know if he or she should be a cartoonist?
I think it's like if you really can't do anything else, which is sort of how I arrived at the, where being a cartoonist is just, I couldn't do anything else. I am terrible at everything else. So.
It was your life's calling.
It was the last resort, really.
Well, first of all, I'm going to challenge you on that answer because with all that amazing crafting that you showed us, there's a lot of things that you can do in addition to cartooning. But that's just me. Bob, how about you?
Well, if you get fired as a rodeo clown, then you start thinking of the alternatives. It's something you fall into. I mean, I don't know how I got on this crazy ride to begin with, and I abandoned a successful career as an illustrator and a writer. So it's not, I should mention, seriously, it's not easy being a cartoonist.
Actually, there's going to be a follow-up question that hits on that. So hold that thought, Bob. How about you, Matt? What do you think?
I was interested in two things growing up. I mean, other than girls and sports and the usual, but I was always interested in comedy and interested in art. And I kind of failed at both. Tried to do stand-up comedy for a while and was not good enough at it. And tried to be like a gallery artist, like a painter, and I didn't see any success there. So for me, it was like taking these two failures. And when I heard about the New Yorker cartooning as being a thing, I looked at it and late in life, 29 years old, and thought, this is where I can take my two sort of failed pursuits and combine them. And it was kind of a perfect fit for me. I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine a cartoonist having to wonder if they should be one or not, honestly. Everyone I know, it
happened.
Yeah. I mean, Bob's probably the exception. He actually chose it in a way.
Yeah.
that some of the rest of us, I don't think, did.
Okay. So here's a follow-up question. This is actually submitted by Joseph Eckstein. Do you think cartooning as a career is as viable today as it was when you entered the field, or do you think an oversaturation of amateur gagsters via YouTube, etc., or a diminishing number of places to sell cartoons has made the field more challenging to earn a living? That's a heavy question. We obviously have some people out there who are thinking, could I make a living being a cartoonist today?
It's never been a viable career.
Okay, fair.
It never. I mean, Linda Barry used a great word to describe it. It's rickety. And, you know, when she, that word conjures up this kind of, I picture like a bunch of old broken down chairs that you found on the street, sort of stacked one on top of another. And, you know, you're just sitting there trying to keep your balance. And I think that it really is like, you have to really want to do this. I don't think that you just suddenly think, what seems like a fun career? I think I'll be a cartoonist. You know, I just don't know anybody who's a cartoonist where it was like that. It was just like, this is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, we're talking about the niche career of gag cartooning.
Right.
The whole thing, the animation and stuff like that. But gag cartooning 3 years ago, it was a little bit more viable. I was working for Mad Magazine and Barron's and for Playboy and for Harvard Business Review. And I had like a dozen places that I would submit work to, which are all gone now. They're either not buying cartoons or they're bankrupt. Yeah. So it has changed. I mean, the landscape has drastically changed every which way.
So to follow up on that, because another question came in that's related to this conversation, and you may have already answered it, Bob. This is from Anna, and Anna, forgive me if I butcher your last name, is Angela Dacus or Dacus. What advice would you give to young people that are interested in cartooning?
I'll just jump in really quick and say, should definitely go to school and college and learn a lot of different things. And in this day and age, not rely on one thing. I mean, you pursue your interest in cartooning, and that's a great passion to have. But you should also protect yourself by being very well skilled and develop your toolbox to have many different options.
Roz, how about you? What advice would you give young people?
Oh, God. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I was so backed into a corner just for many, many, many different reasons that I never felt that I had any other option. So I did not, like, I went to art school, so I didn't have a big toolbox, you know. I just really focused on what I needed to do. So I think if you, I don't know. I mean, as I said earlier, I honestly don't really understand what drives other people. And so it's very hard for me to, give anybody any advice. Plus anything that I would say to people is probably dated. And it might not really apply to them, you know. I mean, the things that work for me, which is really just focus completely on what you think is funny, and then try your hardest to express that in the best way possible, may not work for other people. So I don't know. I mean,
yeah, humor is subjective. There's no question about it.
Extremely subjective. I mean, and the idea of, like, second guessing and trying to figure out the market. I mean, I would rather shoot myself in the head, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think that it helps. Maybe it helps if you're backed into a corner, you know, and your other option is jumping off a cliff.
There you go. Matt, how about you? How would you answer that question?
I agree with both of my colleagues. I do think it's good to get a well-rounded education. For one thing, just to make more jokes, more about more things. And then apart from that, I guess you just do research as much as you can, learn to draw as well as you can, or as specifically as you can, study the field, and probably have a secure day job. Or
That
marry.
sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to take advantage of the microphone here and ask the last two questions. By the way, we do have a winner, so we'll save that for the end. We have a winner for our trivia question, who's going to get a copy of the new book. My first question to you is, what makes you laugh? What gives you that belly laugh? Not just a chuckle, but a real laugh.
Usually it's my own stupidity.
For me, it's Roz's stupidity.
Yeah, that would be it.
I would have said Bob's stupidity. Bob, how would you answer that question? What makes you laugh?
Roz's stupidity.
Roz's stupidity.
Hilarious.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
I like everything that's funny. I'm not like specific to cartoons or like really sophisticated humor. I really like kind of everything, except Tim and Eric's awesome show. I just don't get it.
Okay.
I'm too old. That's when I realized I'd gotten too old.
You've gotten too old. So here's my last question. If you all have fans, you are all renowned in your industry. So you can, be very self-deprecating, and we appreciate that. But the fact of the matter is, you are each and every one of you are amazing talents. So my question is, what feedback from your fans gives you the most joy? When somebody says, what really tells you, you know what, I'm in the right place, I'm doing the right thing?
Wow. I mean, there is so much to say about that, because I'm so grateful when I do hear feedback. I really appreciate it, and I love it when I hear someone say it made their day, because I feel like that's why sometimes we're doing what we're doing, is to just make things more bearable. It goes right back to the title of the show. Is I feel like sometimes, like if I go see my family and maybe people are having a rough time, or there's an occasion that's not pleasant, I do feel like it's my responsibility to lighten the mood, as I mentioned before. And I feel like we do that with the cartoons or writing and other things. So just hearing the feedback and hearing it touches people means a lot.
Good. Matt, how about you?
I guess I love it most when somebody responds to something really specific in a cartoon. The little detail in a facial expression, or the way I drew one little moment that makes the joke, and they're, I guess, because I go kind of crazy about, like, is this word funnier than this word? Is it better if it's shorter by one word? And all those little, and then in the drawing too, should they be looking to the left, to the right? All these little things. And so I really like it when somebody points out, like, I love that tiny little detail. And I feel like, you got it. Yeah, you got it.
They got it. I love it.
As opposed to somebody coming up and just saying, like, I love that cartoon because I'm an accountant also. Yeah. Then it's more about them than it is about the actual cartoon.
Cartoon itself. Gotcha. Yeah. Roz, how would you answer that question?
I think any time I can make somebody laugh, I'm really happy about that. Because to me, when something makes me laugh, it's almost like a miracle. It just, it's just a great thing, So if something I do or say or draw or write makes somebody laugh, that makes me really happy.
That's wonderful.
Roz, can I throw in a question? Roz, do you also feel like you've done a lot of like really heartfelt stuff? Do you get those kind of comments too?
Oh, yeah. Well, the book I wrote about my parents.
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot of feedback about that, and I, before COVID, I traveled and would give talks and stuff, and I mean, to know that because I think we work in a vacuum, kind of. We work at home and we're around other people. So I never know exactly whether what I'm thinking about and working to put on the page, whether that communicates to anybody. So when people tell me, like, that book, it really made me laugh. It sounds so corny to say this. It sounds just incredibly corny. Ugh, God. But it made me cry. It made me laugh. I mean, that's like the miracle of any kind of writing or drawing, that some emotional thing can communicate itself to somebody else, It's to me like a miracle.
And I think that's a great place to hit the pause button. I cannot thank you each enough. I'm a huge fan of all of you. I know the people who have tuned in have. We've been getting fabulous comments tonight. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your expertise. Thank you for the great conversation and sharing the cartoons. Bob, our winner of our trivia question is Michael Shaw. Michael, I assume you are probably still listening. What I need you to do, I'm guessing you are on Facebook. Please go to the private messenger and leave your address where you would like that book sent, because Bob is going to be sending that to you personally. And any contact information and email would be helpful. So do that through private message. And if you're not on Facebook, then you can send it to our Milford info. It's info@milfordreadersandwriters.com, and I will take care of it from there. So that takes care of the contest. Bob, you had something else to add?
Yeah, I want to let's give a prize to the runner-up. Did someone else have an answer and come in second place? Let me give out a second book.
I don't know offhand. I'm relying on the people who are watching all of that, because I'm not watching that live.
Yeah, we can look that up.
We can look that up. We can definitely look that up.
Let's give a second book.
So yeah, and guys, this was fabulous. It really was wonderful. I can't thank you enough. I know Edson has a few closing comments. So those of you that have tuned in, please do not go away, because he wants to tell you about the other two events that are coming up on Sunday, on tomorrow. So thank you, Roz. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Matt. Matt, you can go to bed now.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Bob and Matt.
Bye, Roz.
Bye.
Bye, Bob.
Wow. Thank you all. Thank you, Bob, Roz, Matt. You knocked it out of the ballpark and brought some humor and also brought some real insight into what you do, how you do it, why you do it, and just an excellent evening. I'm only sorry that you couldn't hear us laughing. We maybe should have put a soundtrack on or something like that, because I know I was cracking up at some of the cartoons here, and I'm sure everyone else was as well. So that's all we were missing, was the audience response. But I know from what we've seen from some of the questions and messages, it was really an enjoyable evening. Also, great questions, and thank you, Carol, for vetting the questions for us. And I want you to remember that we have 2 more conversations tomorrow. We have legendary science fiction writer Samuel Delaney at 1 p.m. So that's our afternoon science fiction event, and talking about the Milford method, which and the history of Milford and science fiction. And 7:30, same time in the evening tomorrow, a young author, George M. Johnson, who will discuss their autobiography, his memoir of growing up Black and gay in New Jersey. It's aimed at a young adult audience, and very touching memoir about what he experienced growing up. So again, we'd appreciate your tax-deductible donation in any amount, if you can, to keep the festival alive and ready to present to you in person next year. Just go to our website at milfordreadersandwriters.com and click on the donate button. And please mark your calendars and reserve the weekend of September 17th, 18th, and 19th, 2021 for next year's festival. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again tomorrow.